Joining us now is Leonard Larry McKelvey, who's actually better known for his role on the wildly popular Breakfast Club show, and he's known as Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Peace. How are y'all?
We're doing well. We're doing well. So,
I look big on that screen.
Lean back. There you go.
There we go. So, Charlemagne, you just put out a new book, and I read it in a day. I thought it was fantastic. Get Honest or Die Lying, Why Small Talk Sucks, which I honestly cannot relate to more. I can't stand small talk. And what I loved about your book was that you are encouraging people to engage in substantive conversations that might make the two parties uncomfortable due to differences in political views, or maybe they're discussing something controversial. But the idea is to embrace discourse, and I love the message that you have in that book. And so with that said, I want to embrace some discourse right now by starting off with a question about something that stood out to me on The View when you made an appearance on the show. So I want to go to this video. It's an exchange between you and Sunny Hostin, and then I'll ask my question. Take a look.
You endorsed Joe Biden back in 2020, but this time around you say you're not going to endorse anybody. Charlemagne, now is not the time, in my opinion, to sit this one out.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I never said I was sitting it out.
What you gonna do?
I'm definitely voting in November, but what I like to focus on is issues, not individuals. Like, you know, when
but
you
why not endorse?
Huh?
Why not endorse Biden?
Because if I'm sitting here telling my listeners that, you know, you have somebody out there who is a threat to democracy, you have somebody out there who said they want to, you know, suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. You saw this person, you know, try to lead an attempted coup of this country, and I'm telling people that this guy is a threat to democracy. Have you ever read Project 25? Mm-hmm. There's only 2 candidates out there. So if I'm saying that about this individual, the choice is clear, right?
So
we're back with the Young Turks today, and Anna and Jenk have a guest called Charlemagne the God. I'm not familiar with him. Maybe you've heard his name. I don't watch his breakfast show or whatever it is. But judging by that short clip they showed from The View, the Yentas, of course, over on The View, are obviously trying to get him to endorse the Democratic candidate for for president. Of course, because The View couldn't conceive of supporting anybody else but the Democratic Party and the Democratic candidate, and I think they would all rather shoot themselves rather than vote for Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. But regardless of that, I thought he handled himself well. He answered the question well. He said basically that, if I understood correctly, that he's not particularly impressed with either candidate, and he'd prefer to talk about individual issues, which is reasonable. You know, if somebody says to you, I mean, if they say to me, in fact, yeah, so what do you think about Trump? What do you think about Biden, or now Harris? Yeah, it's like, well, I don't really think about them at all. In fact, if you want to ask me my opinion on something, ask me about a particular issue, and I'll give you my opinion. It makes sense. Now, of course, when it comes to voting, one single candidate is not going to align with all your positions on all your issues, on all the issues that you feel strongly about. But in any case, I do think he makes a very good point that you're going to get further in talking with people if you just talk about individual issues. Let's see what Ana Kasparian here on the Young Turks has to say.
You're clearly unhappy with the Biden administration, considering the fact that you're kind of making this distinction between, you know, doing an endorsement, as you did in 2020, versus what you're planning on doing this time around. You're not endorsing Biden, but clearly you're going to vote for Biden. Do you feel that constantly voting for the lesser of two evils, election after election, is going to get Democratic voters to where they want to be in this country, with a party that actually represents their best interests, as opposed to the best interests of, you know, lobbyists, corporations, a foreign government like Israel, which the Biden administration very clearly seems to prioritize over the best interests of his own constituents? I'm curious if you think...
Ooh, shots fired there. Excellent point by Anna about Israel. I agree 100%.
Your tactic here is going to yield positive results.
Well, I want to say in 2020, I didn't endorse President Biden either. In 2020, I was on record saying that I am voting for this administration because of, his vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris. Like I said that in 2020. So I don't even know where the rhetoric came from that, I'm endorsing, President Biden. And, you use some language just now that I think is so interesting. And when you see statistics like, 1 in 4 Americans have unfavorable views of, both Trump and Biden, or when you hear my man Tim Ryan, talk about the exhausted majority, how people are just tired of politics. At some point, people got to get tired of choosing between the lesser of two evils, right? Like, I wonder when we even say that, do we even understand what we're saying? Like, if you walked in a room and somebody put two evils on the table, I want you to think of the most evilest things you can possibly think of, and they put them on the table and said, hey, you have to choose between one of these two things. Wouldn't that be a very difficult choice for anybody? Would that be something that you would want to tell people? Oh man, well, since I got to choose the lesser one, I guess I will endorse this one. It's like we use this language that's kind of like just it's discouraging.
It's coercive.
Like literally,
That's what it
it's
is.
very discouraging, to the American people. And that's why I say I would rather talk about issues than individuals, especially in an election like this. When an election like this, where neither one of the candidates are people that folks really truly enjoy. Well, I'm not gonna say that because they definitely have their bases, but people like me can't really get into. I would rather just talk about the issues as opposed to talking about the individuals.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that because, for every election cycle, I've caved into that framing, lesser of two evils, lesser of two evils. At this point, it's the only rallying cry that the Democratic Party has. Vote for us because the other guy is worse. It's been election cycle after election cycle, the same nonsense. And this time around, I'm not going for it. I'm not going to fall for it because the one saving grace for the Democratic Party previously was this idea that they're the decent ones. They're the ones who care about people of color. They're the ones who care about brown Americans. And then you see the slaughter of innocent Palestinian civilians with the Biden administration greenlighting it. And I just don't think they have a leg to stand on that.
Ana Kasparian here on the Young Turks, dropping red pills every day. This is just insane watching her character arc from libtard progressive a couple of years ago to right-wing adjacent, dare I say. I'm sure she wouldn't agree with that, but let's call her reality-based, reality adjacent. Anna heading towards the light. Yeah, well done, Anna. I couldn't agree with her more. And I'm sure it happens on the other side too. Yes, I think the American voters in general, probably not just in America, but also in Europe where I am, are just utterly fed up with the slop served up by the two establishment parties, the slop candidates served up, and you're supposed to like feed at the trough here. Or not even feed at the trough, you're supposed to thank the two establishment parties for the crappy candidates they put forward, and you're supposed to like be grateful for it somehow. And yeah, this Democratic, more specifically, she's talking about the Democrats here. Yeah, they've always positioned themselves as the party of the righteous. They're on the right side of history. Man, where have we heard that before? They're protecting and they're protecting the underdog. They're protecting the oppressed minorities. It's all utterly nonsensical. And even Anna from the Young Turks is seeing through it. She's been on this change for months now, and it's coming out more and more.
That issue. So that's where I stand on it, but I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, focusing on the issues is important. It's just that I don't think the Democratic Party has been focusing on the issues.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, to your point, people are tired of voting out of fear because, I first voted for President, Barack Obama. That was the first time I ever voted, period, locally, on the national level. And ever since then, I've just heard the rhetoric, right? The rhetoric is always the Republican candidate is going to end democracy. The Republican candidate doesn't care about democracy. It's just like, damn, y'all been using the same language for all these different presidential Republican candidates to the point where you actually now have a real threat to democracy out there, and you're kind of like the party who cried wolf, and it's like you can't even get, you can't even get the sense of urgency up in America because people are like, oh, I heard that before. You told.
Well, I have to admit, this Charlemagne the God guy seems to have his head firmly on his shoulders, seems to be thinking cogently and coherently. I like the points he's making. I mean, it sounds like he's not going to vote for Trump. He just literally called Trump a threat to democracy. In effect, falling into the same trap that he says the Democrats have fallen into in all the previous election cycles, where if you cry wolf for too long, then who's going to listen now? Well, so he's finally fallen into that trap, but it sounds like basically his approach seems sound. If he's not going to vote for Trump, well, that's his business. That's his business. Fine by me. But now he seems to be agreeing with the Yentas on The View and all the rest of the mainstream media that Trump is somehow a threat to democracy. We already had a term of Trump. They were saying that before Trump was elected. They were saying, oh, it's a threat to democracy. The meltdown during his initial campaign in 2016 and after he was elected, remember. I remember seeing meetings. Google had an all-hands-on-deck meeting the day after the election where the CEO of Google was talking to the entire company about how, yeah, I know we're all in a very bad place right now. This is the day after Trump was elected. They were literally the screaming progressive meme, that meme of the unhinged progressive screaming at the sky. They were literally doing that. Google was doing that, and I'm sure you can find that. And of course, everyone else was too. So he seems like an intelligent guy. Seems like at least he's thinking. He's thinking about talking too to other people. But he has fallen into the trap. Anyway, let me know what you think. Maybe I missed something, or you can add something else to the debate. Feel free to leave a comment and like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and make more content.